In 2010, two friends, let's call them Maya and Dylan, were roommates. They split $800 rent on a cramped apartment with an avocado green refrigerator and a dishwasher that only worked if you slammed the door twice. They graduated from the same program in the same year and both started their first real jobs at exactly $52,000 a year. Financially, if you looked at their spreadsheets, you couldn't tell them apart. Fast forward 15 years. Maya just took a job she actually wanted, a job that pays less money, and she did it without flinching. Dylan, on the other hand, is standing in a service center parking lot at 2 in the morning, tapping a high-interest credit card to cover a blown transmission on a matte black truck he financed the month he turned 25. Their incomes never diverged, not once. They made the exact same amount of money over a decade and a half, yet one of them is entirely free, and the other is entirely trapped. It wasn't luck. It wasn't an inheritance. It wasn't a lottery ticket. It was a handful of silent, invisible decisions that nobody warned them about. Welcome to the Masterclass. Today, we are spending the next half hour breaking down the 6 biggest wealth killers of your 20s and 30s. These are the traps you have to avoid at all costs. Before we dive into the 6 killers, we need to completely rewire how you view these 2 decades. Most people treat their 20s and 30s like a financial warm-up. They treat it like the practice round, the years you're allowed to be broke, a little reckless, and figure it out later, assuming you'll get serious at 40. That is the single most expensive misunderstanding in American personal finance. Because of the mathematical miracle of compounding, the dollars that pass through your hands between age 22 and 40 are the most powerful, explosive dollars you will ever hold. They have the most time to grow. When a wealth killer eats your money at 25, it doesn't just cost you the $1,000 you spent. It robs you of the $15,000 that money would have become by the time you retire. Maya understood the math. Dylan didn't. Let's look at exactly what ate Dylan's money, starting with the quietest assassin of them all. Wealth killer number 1 is the one nobody notices because it never feels like a mistake. It's called lifestyle creep. This is the killer that gets you exactly 1 raise at a time. Here's exactly how it works. You get a promotion. Congratulations, an extra $10,000 a year. But within about 8 weeks, that extra money quietly disappears. You move into a slightly nicer apartment with in-unit laundry. You upgrade to the premium streaming tier. You start ordering DoorDash instead of doing the Sunday grocery run. You buy the name brand paper towels. Nothing dramatic happened. You didn't go to Vegas and put it all on black. Your life just expanded to swallow the raise, exactly the way a goldfish grows to the exact size of its tank. This is a massive reason why the national savings rate in the U.S. recently plummeted to around 4%. Think about that. Americans are keeping roughly 4 cents out of every dollar they earn. Americans are earning more money than they ever have in human history, and they are saving almost none of it. Let's look at the real price tag. When Maya and Dylan both got a $10,000 raise at age 30, Dylan let his life absorb it. It vanished into nicer dinners and a better couch. Maya took that raise, which broke down to about $830 a month, and she automated it straight into an investment account. At a historical 7% return, by the time she hits retirement, that one single raise becomes more than $1 million. The trap isn't that you spend money. The trap is that a raise feels like a reward you've already earned, when in reality, it is a fork in the road. You have to capture your raises before your lifestyle even realizes they exist. Killer number 1 was quiet. Killer number 2 is loud, heavy, and parked in your driveway. It is the single most reliable way young people torch their financial future. The car trap. I want you to brace yourself for these numbers because they are terrifying. The average new car payment in America is now hovering around $770 a month. The average used car payment is sitting around $530. More than 1 in 6 people signing a new car loan today are committing to over $1,000 a month. The average new car costs over $49,000 right now. That is a mortgage-sized payment in large parts of this country. But here's the brutal difference. A house generally goes up in value. A car loses a fifth of its value the second its tires touch the public road. A new car drops 10% the minute you drive it off the lot, and about 20% in the first year alone. When you finance a new car, you are taking out a high-interest loan on an asset that is sprinting away from you faster than you can pay it down. This is why almost 30% of people trading in a car right now are underwater. They owe more on the loan than the machine is actually worth. So what do? They roll that negative equity into the next loan. Now they're paying $900 a month on an 84-month loan, 7 years, for a piece of metal that will be worthless by the time they get the title. Let's go back to Dylan and Maya. Dylan's truck payment was $770. Maya bought a boring, perfectly reliable 5-year-old used sedan. Her payment was $300. She took the $470 difference and invested it. Over 30 years at 8%, that difference becomes roughly $700,000. Dylan didn't buy a $40,000 truck. He bought a $700,000 truck. Cars aren't wealth killers because they cost money. They are wealth killers because of what that monthly payment could have grown into.
If the car is how you light the match, killer number 3 is how you keep your finances burning for decades: consumer debt. Americans currently owe over $1.25 trillion on credit cards. The average interest rate on a card carrying a balance is a staggering 22%. To give you some perspective, a mortgage might cost you 7%. Your credit card is charging you 3 times what a house costs. It is, by a massive margin, the most toxic, radioactive money you will ever touch. Here is the math trap. At 20 to 22% interest, a balance you never pay down would double in about 3 to 4 years. You buy a $400 jacket, in 4 years it costs you $800, and you don't even wear it anymore. The average balance carried by Americans is around $6,700. If you make only the minimum payments on that, it will take you over 18 years to clear, and it will cost you more than $14,000 total. Sit with that. You would still be paying for the drinks you bought last weekend when your unborn child graduates high school. But wait, it gets darker. There is a newer, sneakier version hunting people in their 20s right now. Buy now, pay later. Nearly 2/3 of Gen Z has used these Pay in 4 apps, and a quarter of users are now using them to buy groceries. We are splitting eggs and milk into 4 easy installments. Dylan had 4 of these running at once. He couldn't have told you his total debt if his life depended on it. The industry calls this loan stacking. The rest of us call it financial chaos. It makes spending feel fake. It's debt wearing a tiny, cheerful costume, and it will bleed your monthly cash flow dry. The first 3 killers are really just symptoms of killer number 4. This one costs the most, but it hurts the least in the moment. It's just waiting. Quietly telling yourself, I'll start investing later, once I make a little more, once the debt is gone, once I get married, once things settle down. Maya started investing $500 a month at age 25. At a boring index fund average of 7%, she will have about $1.3 million by the time she's 65. Dylan finally felt ready at age 35. He started investing the exact same $500 a month. He'll end up around $600,000 at age 65. He only skipped the first 10 years. But those 10 years cost him $700,000. Compounding is the one place in human existence where showing up early and being lazy absolutely destroys showing up late and trying hard. Oh, and by the way, if you have a 401k match at work and you aren't taking it, you are literally refusing free money. An employer match is a guaranteed 50 to 100% return on your investment. That does not exist anywhere else in the known universe. Take the free money. But what happens when you try to do all this without a safety net? That brings us to killer number 5, having zero emergency fund. Right now, barely half of Americans could cover a $1,000 emergency out of cash savings. So what happens? Life sends you a bill you didn't plan for. A water heater explodes, the dog swallows a sock, your brakes grind to a halt. Because you don't have a buffer, you reach for that 22% credit card. Now an $800 repair quietly becomes a $1,300 debt. A lack of an emergency fund is the amplifier. It routes every minor inconvenience in your life straight into high-interest debt. Dylan's missing $1,000 emergency fund reached all the way through time and detonated his future wealth, forcing him to rob his future self just to survive a Tuesday. Which brings me to killer number 6. It is the sneakiest of them all because it perfectly disguises itself as success. It's twofold: spending to look rich and trying to be too clever. Let's talk about looking rich first. Marketing stopped selling you products decades ago. They started selling you identities. The truck isn't a truck, it's a personality. The luxury watch isn't a watch, it's a scoreboard. People spend money they don't actually have on things they don't actually need to impress people who aren't thinking about them at all. It is the most expensive game on earth. The grand prize for winning is that a few strangers in traffic briefly assume you might be doing okay. Dylan's truck was a $770 a month billboard advertising a version of himself that didn't exist. But what about the people who do invest? They fall for the second part of ego. They try to outsmart the system. You start investing, and suddenly you get an itch to be brilliant. You watch the news, you see a scary headline, you pull your money out. 6 months later, the market hits a record high, and you panic buy back in.
Here is the brutal data. Over a 20-year period, the stock market historically returns around 10% a year. The average investor in that same market earns about 9.2%. Why? Because they fidget. They underperform the very thing they are invested in purely by touching it. On $100,000 over 20 years, that fidgeting costs you over $100,000 in lost growth. You pay 6 figures for the fleeting privilege of feeling like a genius. Let's zoom out. Lifestyle creep. The truck, the cards, the waiting, the missing safety net, the ego. Notice something? They aren't 6 separate problems. They are the exact same problem wearing 6 different outfits. Every single one of them takes your most valuable, time-rich dollars, the ones you only possess in your 20s and 30s, and quietly redirects them away from your future and straight into a bank's pocket. If you recognized yourself in 3, 4, or even all 6 of these, take a deep breath. I do not want you to feel stupid. You are not stupid. The American consumer system was never designed to be survived on instinct. Every transaction is stacked against you. The dealership profits on the long loan. The bank profits on the balance you carry. The app profits on your impulse. Not a single corporation makes a dime when you calmly build a boring emergency fund and invest in a low-cost index fund. So nobody taught you how to do it. But you know the rules now. Think back to Dylan in that parking lot at 2 a.m. tapping his card for that transmission repair. He is trapped. Maya is free. She took a pay cut to do work she loves because her foundation is unbreakable. You don't get to choose whether the clock runs. The clock is running right now. You only get to choose whether it is running for you or against you. Avoiding these 6 killers isn't about being cheap. It's not about eating plain rice in a dark room for a decade. It is about refusing to trade a piece of your actual freedom for something that only looks like status. You were going to spend your 20s and 30s either way. The only question is whether at age 40 you are standing on a fortress of wealth or standing at the bottom of a very deep hole that you spent 15 years decorating really nicely. Pick one of these 6 killers today. Plug the leak. Start the clock. Because 10 years from now, you will either quietly thank yourself or you will wish more than anything that you had started today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.